Presentation on the first item.
Thank you, Mayor Stewart. Item 1 relates to bylaw numbers 4138 and 4139 2010 as an application to amend the citywide OCP and zoning bylaw to revise the land use designation and zoning of 639 Tyndall Street.
Your Worship and members of council, my name is Aubrey Jensen and I'm a community planner with the city. The subject site is a city-owned property which is located north of Como Lake Avenue and is situated between North Road and Tyndall Street. The address is 639 Tyndall Street. The properties to the north and east are designated one-family residential and are zoned RS1. The property to the south and west, which is Oakdale Park, is designated Parks and Recreation and is zoned P1. The subject site is currently designated one-family residential and is zoned RS1. The applicant, which is the city, is proposing to redesignate this site to a Parks and Recreation land use designation and rezone the property to P1. This site is currently being used as a park space by the surrounding community, and the proposed redesignation of the property will ensure that the property continues to function as park space. Staff recommend adoption of bylaw numbers 4138 and 4139, 2010.
Thank you. Thank you very much. On item number 1, I have one speaker listed, is Scott Yano.
I just wanted to come and speak to everybody and just to make sure we live in the neighborhood. I've lived in the neighborhood for over 40 years, and I grew up tobogganing on the hill, and my kids toboggan on the hill, and I just wanted to voice support for the change of the bylaw from residential to parkland. And we were kind of confused because none of us even knew that it was ever residential in the first place because it's been a park forever. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure I got a chance to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers to this item? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Lorraine Allen. I live directly across from this piece of property. The only question I have is I can understand the changes from one-family residential, though I'm not exactly sure when that took place because originally I do believe that property was owned by Hydro at one time before the other three went into parkland. Could you please tell me why, if you want to change it out of one-family residential and then you make it into park, then it has to be rezoned again to civic institution? Now, why civic institution? I can understand park, but the word institutional has me confused. So if somebody could give me a response to that, I'd really appreciate it, and I am definitely in favor of it remaining as parkland.
Well, if you stay at the microphone, then we'll turn to staff and let.
Yes, Your Worship, members of council. The zone is intended for park. It's the appropriate zone for a park use. It's consistent with the designation of the official community plan, and that's the intent of the application.
I realize the intent of the application, but why do it twice? I'm sorry, but I'm one of those people that keeps things simple, but I can't understand why there are two amendments rather than just one.
Well, yes, if I could, Your Worship. Sorry, we didn't quite fully understand the question. For planning matters, there's the official community plan, it's the OCP, and there's a zoning bylaw. They're two separate bylaws, and they're supposed to correspond. And so to change to make this park, you need to do both the official community plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment. So they are consistent. It's the same use. It's just the official community plan is one map, the zoning's another map. And I think the zone you mentioned, that's just...
Institutional.
That's the title of the zone. It's a bit of a catch-all, but it's meant to be for public facilities and parks, those sorts of areas and facilities. It's in sort of a catch-all zone.
So this will be dedicated as part of the park plan?
This zone, the proposal before us today
Okay.
is to change the OCP and to change the zoning. The zoning is the one you're talking about. It's
Yeah.
called P1, which sounds like park, but its title...
It's the word institutional that really sort of niggles at the back of my mind.
Its title is civic institutional, but that's the zone that parks are in.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And for some reason, they call it civic institutional. I didn't design that, and I don't think any member of council did.
It's very much like coming here this evening and having pavement rehabilitation. I didn't know it needed treatment.
We're addicted to driving, I guess. Okay. Are there any other speakers to this item? Second, are there any other speakers to this item? The third and last time, are there any other speakers to this item? It's a slightly unusual one in which we're proposing to convert an existing piece of land that everyone always thought was something into what everyone always thought it was. Seeing no other speakers, I declare this item closed. Madam Clerk.
Item 2, bylaw number 4131-2010 relates to an application to amend City of Coquitlam zoning bylaw to amend the RS7 small village single family residential, RS8 large village single family residential, RS9 large single family residential, RS10 executive single family residential, and the RS11 estate single family residential zones. It's a text amendment.
Your Worship, members of council, just a brief overview. This staff-initiated zoning bylaw text amendment proposes to clarify and simplify the building setback requirements for single-family zones, specifically, as noted in the bylaw, RS8, RS9, RS10, and RS11, and RS7. Currently, it's difficult to describe by text, but if you can see the drawing, currently there's a number of things that drive the design of single-family homes, including having a minimum garage setback of 6 meters, a house setback of 4 meters, and certain allowable encroachments of porches and other front treatments to the front of homes. However, we found that setback requirements in certain areas, such as the northeast, where there's site constraints related to topography and irregular shaped lots, like pie-shaped lots as shown here, do create some problems. The idea is to eliminate a component of the regulation for pie-shaped lots and then relax those regulations further for conventional shaped lots. Specifically, the requirement would address the current requirement that 35 to 50% of the front of the home has to be in front of the garage. We're relaxing that from currently 1 meter to 2 meters to provide more flexibility. The amendment should improve the application process and provide a little bit more clarity, and it would still safeguard some of the design principles which are evident in the Northeast that have shown quite a good development pattern, including elements of the front of the homes being towards the street, while also addressing some of the inherent challenges of designing homes and building homes on certain irregular lots and also topographically challenged lots. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Seeing none. This is different from the last one. This doesn't apply to a specific property. It's a text amendment. It would apply to all properties in that zone. Are there any speakers to that item? Are there any other speakers to that item? For the third and final time on this item, are there any other speakers? Seeing none, thank you very much. I'll adjourn that item. Ms. Lohr.
Thank you. Item 3, bylaw number 4148-2010 is an application to amend City of Coquitlam zoning bylaw to rezone the properties at 3004 to 3010 Glen Drive from RS1 one family residential to C4 city center commercial.
Your Worship and members of Council, my name is Michael Dollywell, Development Planner with the City. The site is located within the city center at the southwest corner of Glen Drive and Pine Tree Way. The site is currently designated for City Center Commercial, and the applicant is seeking to rezone the site to the corresponding C4 City Center Commercial Zone. The adjacent site to the west is currently zoned C4 City Center Commercial. The site to the north is zoned C4 City Center Commercial and RS1 One Family Residential, and the sites to the east and south are currently zoned RS1 One Family Residential. The sites to the north, west, and south are currently designated in the OCP for City Center Commercial. The applicant is seeking to rezone the site in order to develop a 1 residential tower with 169 units and 6 commercial units along Glen Drive and Pine Tree Way, and a 9-story office building with 2 commercial units along Glen Drive. The residential tower consists of 80 one-bedroom units and 89 two-bedroom units. The units range from 559 square feet to 1,100 square feet.
Thank you. I don't see a speakers list. Are there any speakers to this item? Second time, are there any speakers to this item? Third and final time, are there any speakers to this item? None. Ms. Lohr.
That concludes the items on the public hearing agenda. We'll now move into a regular council meeting.
I'll declare the public hearing adjourned, and I'll open a regular meeting of council that was scheduled and advertised. I'll open with a little opening comment of my own. I had the opportunity a week ago to attend an event for volunteers of Tzu Chi Foundation Canada. Tzu Chi is a club, a service club, essentially, that does a lot of great community work in our community and around the world. And one of the things they do is they recycle single-use water bottles, and they try to make things out of them because they're gathering an awful lot of these. And I did promise them in the course of that event that I would wear it. This shirt is made of 12 water bottles, recycled, and they make fabric out of that, and I am sporting 12 water bottles, and I feel a lot cooler because of it. That was it. I promised I'd wear it at a council meeting, and I've done that.
Your pocket is dripping.
My pocket is dripping. Oh, dry up. Ms. Lohr.
Thank you. Item 1 relates to bylaw numbers 4138 and 4139, 2010, in relation to 639 Tyndall Street. The first recommendation is that council give second and third readings to City of Coquitlam Citywide Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw number 4138, 2010.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Reamer. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Second recommendation is that council give fourth and final reading to Citywide OCP Amendment Bylaw number 4138, 2010.
Moved by Councillor McDonnell, second by Councillor Lynch. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Third recommendation is that council give second and third readings to City of Coquitlam Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4139, 2010.
Moved by Councillor Sikora, second by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I have a question about the pile driving, because we've been getting lots of complaints about what's been going on, and there's certainly been... Oh, sorry.
Well, they might try to drive piles for this one, but I think you're on the next item.
Jet lag is
just a little ahead of yourself. Any other discussions? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
And the next recommendation is that council give fourth and final reading to City of Coquitlam Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4139, 2010.
Moved by Councillor Sikora, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 2 is in relation to bylaw number 4131, 2010 for text amendment to the RS7, RS8, RS9, RS10, and RS11 single-family zones. First recommendation is that council give second and third readings to City of Coquitlam Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4131, 2010. Moved by Councillor Asmundson, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed?
Carried unanimously.
Second recommendation is that council give fourth and final reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4131-2010.
By Councillor Reamer, second by Councillor Lynch. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3 relates to bylaw number 4148-2010 for 3004 to 3010 Glen Drive. Recommendation is that council give second and third readings to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw number 4148-2010.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Reamer. Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you.
I'm sorry? Actually, Councillor McDonnell pushed his button first, and she can talk about pile driving in a park later.
No mention was made of the office tower that's going in. Are they going to be built at the same time, or what's the time frame on the office tower?
Mr. Dowd.
Yes, Your Worship, we're advised that it would be constructed at the same time.
Good, thanks.
Very well. Pile driving. Ms. Robinson. Councillor Robinson.
I apologize for jet lag. The jet lag is sort of set in, and focusing is a bit challenging. It's 11:30 at night for me, so I apologize. But the pile driving. And I know that staff have been getting lots of requests and being asked. We've certainly been asked and certainly been getting lots of complaints about it. And I know that there's some anxiety, and they're still planning to do more towers. But so we're talking about build out for a number of years still to come. And I'm wanting to know if we can, are there any possible solutions to some of this pile driving that's making it very difficult for current residents?
I know that Councillor Asmundson and his committee are working on issues associated with noise. I'll go straight to Mr. McIntyre, and Councillor Asmundson may have a comment too.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And my very first point is that the Engineering and Public Works Department, which typically has responsibility for the noise bylaw, has been tasked to look at this, and I understand the Standing Committee is delving into it. As well, our building permits staff, who receive a lot of the complaints as well and questions around this, and who in fact try to work with the contractors in, for example, getting the operation started later on the weekends, on Saturdays, try to shut down a little earlier on those days as well. And in a number of instances, there's been good cooperation. So anyways, those staff are looking into various options. I know there's been some communication received that's talked about some of the new technologies for pile driving. I profess I don't know much about this myself, but apparently there is some new technology for the actual pile driving equipment, as well as some advances in some of the noise attenuation and baffling around these sites. So we're going to look at that from a technical end and work with engineering staff to come forward with a report on this. I suspect also where we may end up or pursue would be perhaps some best management practices. We want to check with other organizations around, not just the province, but North America as well, and see if there's been other best practices that have been put in place, arrived at elsewhere that we can perhaps learn from. And so we are aware of it. We're working on something. In the meantime, piles are necessary, unfortunately, for the site conditions out here in our city centre, and the underlying ground conditions call for that when you're dealing with large structures of those types. So that's one of the unfortunate necessities of higher density construction in this area, but we are looking into it.
I'd also like to invite staff to take a look at perhaps having some collective quiet time or downtime during the day when they can't pile drive. Because if you have one building going on, it won't be constant, because at some time they'll have to do other things and they'll stop. But when you have, let's say, 4 in construction, that theoretically you could have pile driving all day long with no breaks, because they're all working on their own schedule. So if there's some way, if we have more than 1 or 2 buildings being constructed at the same time, I think residents would need a break at some point during the day when there would not be any pile driving, so that each site would be forced to at least collectively coordinate that between 2 and 4 there is no pile driving. Something along those lines, because otherwise this really could happen all day long when there's so many different sites going on. Thank you.
Yeah, now the engineering committee is looking at that. To its credit, council also made some changes, as Mr. McIntyre mentioned, about 2 months ago, to limit on Saturdays, because an early morning Saturday pile driving is possibly the more irritating of the ones, but nonetheless there is still some work to be done, and I know Councillor Asmussen is working on those.
Well, thank you. This has been an issue that we've been aware of for a little while now, and it goes between engineering and planning. The issue is across cooperation, working on the issue, and staff. We've been talking to them about this issue from the engineering and the building permits and how to deal with this, from the noise, the vibration. Noise comes under engineering, the vibration, the permits comes under planning and building inspection. The staff are looking at various methods. What we've challenged them to do is go out to other municipalities, other cities such as Vancouver. They do pile driving. How do they minimize? How do they work with that in their community? How do we deal with the effects of vibration in the building? If there's any damage in these buildings that maybe the contractor should be liable for. These are all the issues that staff are being challenged. We've had some good information and comments sent to us. The one thing about that staff has pointed out, though, if you reduce the time period of pile driving or take a break during the day, you're now just extending the number of days extensionally of the pile driving to continue on a longer period of time. So every time, if you take 2 hours every day out, that means you're adding X number of days longer that this is going to be going on. Staff have looked at all these different situations they're working on, and it's a high priority from both the engineering committee and the planning department to look at this issue and try to get a better solution to minimize the impact on the people in the surrounding towers in that area. We don't have an answer at this time, but we're working on it.
Good. I look forward to seeing a staff report and further action this fall. Are there any other comments? Being none, the motion is the recommendation, item number 3. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
We do have an additional item on tonight's agenda referred from the September 13th, today's Land Use and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting, the subject of which is the City of Port Coquitlam's official community plan amendment related to Dominion Triangle. The recommendation is that Council direct staff to send a letter with a copy of this report to Port Coquitlam, providing comments on the proposed OCP amendment and further reaffirming the need for Port Coquitlam and Coquitlam to work together to develop an effective transportation network, including the Fremont Connector, that addresses the long-term interests of both cities.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, seconded by Councillor Lynch. This comes to Council. It was dealt with in a committee this afternoon, and because of urgency, is going to be dealt with tonight as well. It's simply a review by neighboring communities of their OCP amendment in Port Coquitlam. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
That concludes the items on the formal agenda.
Thank you very much. Before we adjourn the meeting, I just want to remind everybody there's a town hall meeting on Thursday night from 7 o'clock till 9:30. That's primarily to deal with budget, although any item at all is certainly welcome to come out. I'd remind folks that if they didn't see this afternoon's Parks and Recreation Committee meeting, the Mundy Park proposal actually is probably going to be taking a step back, and the committee recommended that not proceed. So those people that may have wanted to bring that up on Thursday night, we are backing off. Council backed off on that, or the committee did in any case. Any other discussion? Oh, Terry Fox run, exactly. Well, actually, Councillor Robinson, is this really exciting? Do you want to? Oh well, don't have a microphone. This is the first chance that Coquitlam has to host.
It's the first annual Terry Fox run for Coquitlam. It's going to be, I think, it's the inaugural Coquitlam Terry Fox run on Sunday the 19th. 8:30 registration, 9:30 start or 10 o'clock start, don't remember, but Blue Mountain Park. Make sure you come on out. It's the first time we're going to be doing this, and would like to have a great crowd.
Really looking forward to that, other than if we get a certain number of registrants, I apparently lose my hair. But
you are losing your hair.
Oh, well, I'm going to lose it more officially if we reach a threshold on membership, on registrations. So we'd urge you all to adopt this enthusiastically. Any other comments?
Do we get to shave it?
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Anything else? Seeing none. Motion to adjourn? Councillor Asmundson, seconded by everyone else. All in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you.